known that, I'd become famous for that Union Jack.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Welcome once again to Enforcing the Fundamentals with Doug Harding. I know we've been on a little bit of a break. We've had a little bit of chaos going on here at the home studio. So I've just recently sorted all that out, have everything moved around, have my office space back so that I can do these things a little easier. And yeah, so couple of weeks off there they weren't intending. We're probably going to end up with a couple of weeks more off for those that are listening with bated breath. What are we going to talk about? When am I going to get more? It might be a couple more weeks because Doug's going on a little bit of a trip. Just sort of tell everybody what's so important to have drug you out of the wonderful life of small town living up north.
Well, it's a bucket list thing. My wife really likes to travel a lot, so we're actually headed to Johannesburg, South Africa, and then we have a bit of a business conference, and then we're going to go on a safari. And Jane wanted to make sure I came along because she knew that if the lions were chasing us, I'm slower than she is, and I'm a considerably bigger morsel for them to have. So
Yeah, a little
yeah,
more
we'll
meat on
go
your
from
bones there.
there,
Yeah.
and then we're going to go to England and Scotland and France for a little while. So it's all about the bucket list. So hoping I'm not getting close to the end of the bucket, but yeah, it's going to be a great trip.
No, this is fantastic. And I was saying this to somebody just the other day. It's good to see you traveling to places without hockey rinks for a change.
I've never done that before, so
It's been it's been a while at the very least. I mean, I know you've done a few things, but there's always been a hockey rink nearby. I kind of defy you to find one in Johannesburg. I'd like to see how that turns out, although maybe not wander around the
I bet
city
I
in it.
can find them in England and France, though.
Oh, I bet you can. I bet you can. I believe there's a a former associate of yours that just came back from playing in England. Did he
Yes,
not?
yes, he did. Yeah,
Mr. Petrozelli, I believe, is
yes, he
yeah,
did.
and
So
he is now signed to a team in Florida, if rumor and innuendo are correct.
yes,
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's out there. There are rinks in England. I mean, to me, hockey is right up the English alley some days because you got some hoodlums there. We've been watching Welcome to Wrexham with Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney, and they buy a soccer team in Wrexham, Wales. And I really got to look one episode at the soccer hooligans and exactly their antics, and it's a lot more serious than I thought. Um,
Yeah, they take
there's
their
some rough
football
boys over there.
serious. Yeah, they take their football serious, and they seem to like to put it on the road too, which is,
Hmm.
it's one thing to be rowdy a little bit at home, but to go to somebody else's home and be rowdy, they can mix it up pretty good from what I've
Yes.
heard.
Yeah, and yeah, they can. I highly recommend this show. I mean, you wouldn't think a documentary about a couple of actors buying a English football team or a Welsh football team. I'm sorry to anybody out there that just got offended by that, because Lord knows I'd be offended if you called me a French Canadian. It's
Oh,
an interesting structure over there. I don't, are you familiar with how they structure their leagues over there?
only a little bit in the fact that it's tiered and that
Hmm.
they do something that hockey doesn't do. They drop out their bottom teams to bring in new teams every year.
Exactly.
I think that would certainly disturb a lot of people with $1 billion in a franchise to know if you have a bad year, you could be dropped out.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of desperation involved in making sure that you can stay at the top level. So but the
Y-
top teams seem to be able to do that. You
Yep.
get your united teams, and it's there's some. I've watched soccer. I even actually coached a little soccer for a group of kids that didn't have a coach more than a few years ago. But
Hmm.
somebody said, "Oh, we can't play soccer because we don't have a coach." I says, "Well, you know, if we can run the structure of hockey and baseball, I'll take on your soccer team." Actually, we did pretty good. Kids did pretty good. I mean, it's all about having fun, and it's all about working as hard as you can and picking up the challenge. And everybody kind of thought this team wouldn't do very well because they didn't have a coach to select them, where the other teams did. They sort of got the leftovers from whatever. And I'm sure their draft procedure tried to make it as
Hmm.
even as it possibly could. But the kids were great. And they did a great job. And we won more than we lost. So, and not that it's about the winning and losing, but they're a whole lot happier when they win. So it's easier to keep them up.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? It's funny about that is a while back I recommended you watch Ted Lasso, and I know you guys were
Oh
working
yeah.
on it so that you can get it downloaded so you have something to watch on the plane. And as you're put, so I really hope you have, because what you were just saying there is pretty much the exact plot of Ted Lasso. You came in to football, to soccer, from a completely different sport, and made a show of it. So I mean that's fantastic, and that really is the plot of Ted Lasso. And they do deal with the promotion and the relegation in that as well. But going back to Welcome to Wrexham, Rob and Ryan have dumped a lot of actor money, more Ryan than Rob, because I mean, a long running TV show as it may be, still don't have Deadpool money, let alone gin money. But
Well, I love his movies, so I mean,
yeah,
I'll have to look more into what his soccer situation is, and
it,
I understand he sort of kicked off the ball in the bid for the Ottawa Senators too.
yes, he
Him
did.
coming on board with some friends seemed to bring other people with money that got involved, but he does a lot of great things for
He does,
sports and athletics
and with the
and
two of them,
moviegoers.
and just their natural sense of humor, it's not a very I don't want to say it's not serious, because it is a very serious documentary, but they throw a lot of really funny comedy in it as well. Because I mean, they
Yeah.
go over, they visit the team, they visit the people around the town, they make friends, they get them in the documentary. They have their ups and their downs, and there is a few episodes where they take time, one in particular where they make it like a sports desk center, and
Mhm.
they're explaining the English football leagues to us North American people that have no idea what's going on, and it's
Oh,
really, really funny. So
I'll
it's
have to
not
look that
dry
up.
at all.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
highly recommend it. It's called Welcome to Wrexham. Anybody else listening to this that is
Welcome to
not check that out. Highly recommend it. Rob and Ryan are going to make you laugh, and you're going to learn some stuff. But it's the structure of that league, just like you were saying, it would be interesting to see in North American sports, period, because it's the bottom team or two get kicked down a level, and then the top team or two get boosted up, and this happens every year. So you are either fighting relegation or you are fighting for a promotion. And
Mhm.
it's interesting because you could have a team. I think it was in the show, they make the comparison. It's like if the New York Yankees had bad enough seasons back to back to back, they'd be playing the Toledo Mud Hens
Yeah.
all of a sudden,
That would
right?
kinda
Like
kill all the marketing plans, wouldn't it?
it will absolutely, but at the same time, there's some motivation there.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I mean, it's, and talking to some of the players in there as well, and seeing how the coach behaves in the locker room, because there's a lot of footage, of the coach's philosophy, of the pregame, of the postgame, of the halftime locker room stuff. This particular coach gets really fired up, and they call it enthusiasm when he uses that word that I use, like a comma, that rhymes with puck. So not to take hockey completely out of it, and they'll have a ticker a few times in the first season. It's like coach's enthusiasm, and it just goes off every time he uses the word that's not puck. And
Mm.
It's absolutely hysterical. Highly recommend that if you get a chance. But Ted Lasso for sure. I hope you guys did get that figured out. I think you
Well,
would. I'm
I
actually
get the
really interested to find out your take on the way he coaches the team in the show,
yeah.
because it seems very
I
familiar.
watched the first sort of like what do they call it? The preview or
Mhm.
whatever one,
Yep.
and then we've again, being not the technically most savvy person, I've got to go and pay to get the rest of the series. So, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do that because I mentioned that to a few of my friends, and they went, oh yeah, you got to
Mhm.
watch that." And I went, "Oh God."
Yeah. It's a quick 3 seasons, really.
Hmm.
So and I see a lot of your style in what they have Ted doing. So, um, plus it's funny. Jane may not appreciate Roy Kent's dialogue very much, but that's again, he uses that word of enthusiasm. Um, Speaking of enthusiasm, and we don't really have a topic today, so we're just gonna sort of roll with this. There's a lot of enthusiasm around Vancouver lately.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
the Canucks
I
have
mean,
started off on a hell of a tear. They look to be tied for second or third in the league right now as I'm looking at some standings. Yeah, it looks like it's a three-way tie or a two-way tie for. Yeah,
oh,
it's
okay.
they're tied with the Rangers for third spot in the league with
In the league. Oh my
in the
God. I
league
haven't
with.
watched enough. I know that they're winning, and I'm really glad to see that. It's and The games that I have watched, I had to go across to, up at the our
Mhm,
place at Lac La Hache to our neighbors because he has a Sportsnet, and
mhm.
we tried to get Sportsnet, but it won't take it on our satellite dish because it's a US code or something like that. So I've
Oh.
got to get that changed. But watched a few of the Canucks games. I watched the first one I watched was with Edmonton
Mhm,
in that big win. And like I said, wow, this is a different team. They play all three zones. And then I watched them play against Philadelphia, and I thought, oh no, this is the same old Vancouver. They weren't playing
mhm,
any zones, let alone three zones. But I've watched three or four more since then, and boy, they really got something going, and I think that's in big contribution to the coaching that they're getting. And the leadership, someplace in the organization, is really stepping forward.
mhm,
All the players seem to be a lot more enthusiastic to play, and they seem to be willing to do their jobs. I
mhm,
mean, sometimes with a team, you get players that you want to be a different player than what you have them there for. But Vancouver seems to, the guys that are doing the heavy work of the forechecking and the physical work seem to be relatively happy with it. They don't have too many guys unhappy with it. And the guys that are supposed to be the finishing people are finishing, like Brock Besser. Wow. Uh, I know he has gone through a lot of things in the last year, a couple of years, but he's really bringing a great game, and all of them. When you look at the uh, sometimes I have a tendency to judge the quality of the team about them with the middle of the team, not so much the
mhm,
low end or the high end, and the middle of the team driven to do its job, game in and game out. Sort of boosts the higher end guys
mhm,
because there's not as much responsibility on their end, and the guys that want to get into the middle part of the lineup are seem to be playing really harder because they realize their style can fit the middle of it. Doesn't have to be the bottom third of the team. But I'm really impressed with what Vancouver's not only what they've done, but the whole change in their attitude. I mean, it really shows on the ice.
mhm,
You win some, you lose some, and it's not so much about winning and losing as how you're playing. I think they're playing well. I think they're going to have a really good season, barring the injury bug.
right.
But you got Demko playing well, and you got backup goaltending playing well, and you got defense playing well, and Quinn Hughes is just an amazing leader, and Pedersen is doing what he does, handling the pucks and moving pucks, and all of them. I'm very impressed with what they've done so far this year. I'll have to actually find out why I can't get Sportsnet and get hooked back up into it. Jane is glad I don't have Sportsnet because
I can't imagine
I
why.
have a tendency to become quite enthusiastic about spending my time sitting and watching. Oh, it's Canucks. Oh, look who's on after. Oh, look who's on before.
Right?
So I can eat up a lot of time doing that.
Yeah. So Vancouver is tied with New York at 23 points, and they are just behind Boston with 24 and Las Vegas with 25. So that's a hell of a start for Vancouver.
Oh,
Um,
that's
now,
great.
seeing, I having lived in Vancouver for, oh God, 30 years at this point, 30 some odd years, and BC my entire life, you see the ups and downs of the teams. And I've never been a bandwagon jumper. I've never jumped fully on the Canucks at any point. I see a lot of people this year that 10-0 blowout. They're a 10-1 blowout. I think that was against San Jose,
Mhm.
if memory serves, but it probably doesn't. Um, a lot of people were like excited about it, but it's like, I think we just used up all our goals for the year. This is our entire allotment for goals this year. I think we're screwed. And then, as they were having good performances, versus Edmonton, and they seemed consistent, a lot of people
Yes.
seem to jump on that bandwagon really, really early. I'm seeing a lot of flags flying, a lot of talk about. I think my favorite quote was, fire insurance prices downtown just went through the roof because the Canucks are doing well.
Yeah.
Um,
That brings back some memories, doesn't
well,
it?
twice.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any doubt why we were worried for the gold medal game in 2010? Because Vancouver does not take second place lightly.
No,
It's like, we brought
no.
everybody over. Behave yourselves.
Yes.
But it's there's a big swing already, and like you were saying, there's the injury bug. I mean, there can just be the wheels can just fall off too, right? I mean,
Well, they can, but
it.
that's what I kinda like about this team this year. They seem to be very consistent in their effort. I mean, they've had a couple of games that,
Mhm,
the one game I saw with Philadelphia, I thought they could have been a whole lot better than that, and that game is their 3rd game in the year, but, I'm going, "Okay, well, I guess, instead of making any decisions yet as to how hard I'm gonna follow, we better watch, the next 2 or 3 games," and they did really well on that road trip. I thought,
mhm,
they coulda won the Lightning game. I mean, there just seemed to be a more solid group. I think, if you lose 3 or 4 of the top players out, any team is gonna stagger. But, barring that, I think that they can afford to lose for a game or 2, this guy or that guy, and still play as well as they've been playing. So kudos to the Canucks. Congratulations on
mhm.
all the work you've done in the last year before it got started, so
Yeah, and that really does show. Starting a season that hot really shows that, for when that lack of a better term, the cameras aren't on, they've been putting in some stuff in there. Talkett's been figuring some stuff out. I
mhm.
would bet that he and his staff had a very busy summer with the guys, not just replacing rosters, but just sort of figuring everybody out and moving people around. That's my guess. I
Yeah.
mean,
Well, I mean, they've added some pretty solid pieces to the puzzle, but the big thing for me is that the Canucks have had some really great guys, even guys that I
mhm,
know as coaches, you know, but these guys are very driven to make what they have better and understand them more in terms of the roles that they have to play. And for the people that they can't fit a role for, they seem to have, moved other people in. Hopefully that those other people work out. So far, it looks like some of the
mhm,
new players are working out very well, especially defensively. Not only a defenseman, defensively, their neutral zone play is big time improvement. It's not so much a run and gun in the neutral zone, and the Canucks said the last few years have not done well with that. So, but hey, kudos to the Canucks. I
Mhm.
hope they keep going because,
Yep, I
gosh,
think.
it's gonna cost me some money.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the Canucks aren't the only ones doing, really
No,
well this season right off the bat.
yeah,
Austin Matthews pulled something number
yeah,
2 in over 100 years. Mm, pardon me. Back-to-back hat tricks in the opening games of the season. I mean, that's a pretty impressive feat when you're talking it's only been done twice since 1917,
yeah,
and Gretzky's not the other guy.
yeah.
Like,
Who is
that's
Matt?
I will have to look that up. It is not listed here uh in exactly the article I have pulled up. So I
Mhm.
will have to Google that one when you get
It's
off
an
on your next
amazing
rant.
thing. Austin Matthews is an amazing goal scorer. He seems to create opportunities, and that's the big part for a goal scorer. You've got to create opportunities for yourself, not just depend on other people creating them for you. But and I see a little of that in Petey too in Vancouver. Sometimes when it
Mhm,
isn't going well, he creates his own opportunities, and he's willing to share those opportunities as they develop. But it's nice to see him shooting pucks, and um, taking his best opportunity to help. You know, the whole Canucks, are worth watching this year, even if it stumbles a little along the way. I just those kind of teams that are work ethic teams and are
mhm,
disciplined teams, you know, they always impress me because you can't expect to win everything all the time, although the effort is to try and do that. But
mhm,
is what you can get out of the situations. All situations. Like have a great game against Las Vegas. I mean, Las Vegas right now is the top of the pile. So Las Vegas and New York, and I'd like to see them play New York again. I thought they had a good game with New York when they were
mhm.
here. But yeah, it's hockey's worth watching. All you people, get out
Yeah.
there and buy your subscriptions and TSN, send me
It
one.
You know what? It's not like the old days where you might have a game or 2 during the week and you had to wait till, Saturday
Mhm.
night to get,
Yeah,
back-to-back games. You get a sports package, especially if you go to some of the bigger networks with their sports packages, or you get onto the, the other streaming services, you can almost watch every goddamn game out there.
yeah.
So the internet has corrected my statement.
Oh,
Matthews is the first player since Alex Ovechkin did it in 2017, 2018.
okay.
Before that, there was 3 others, Cy Denneny, Joe Malone, and Reg Noble. They all did the exact same thing, but they did it in the 1917-1918 season. So it took 100 years before Alex Ovechkin rolled in, and then Austin Matthews turned around and did it 5 years later. So 6 years later. So, I mean, that's still a hell of a thing. I mean, you're one of 5 in over 100 years, and
Mhm.
the only guy left alive is Alex Ovechkin. If you're second to Alex Ovechkin, you're doing pretty well,
Oh, I would think so.
right? Like,
Love Wayne Gretzky, but for scoring goals, and yeah, he just shoots the puck and it goes in the net. 100 people can, 1,000 people can shoot the puck exactly the same time, exactly the same way, and they won't score. That's been, you know, the question in my mind for the last 50 years is why? Why some people can shoot the puck and it goes in the net? It's not faster, it's not harder. It's placed the same way. I don't know whether they give absolutely no indication, body movement or language wise to goaltenders that fool goaltenders. But boy, everybody knows what he's going to shoot and where he's going to shoot from, and he's still scoring from there. It makes it
It
There's a question. I wished I had the answer. I would love to teach it to every kid out there playing.
Oh, and they would all love to hear it, and then we would be going back to the days in the '80s when the rules were a little different, and it was, an 11 to 10 game wasn't uncommon. There's a reason the points totals were high back then because they were shooting the lights out. I mean, so that's a whole thing, but
Yeah.
it seems to be a
Gretzky was
really.
the same way early in his career. Like,
Mhm,
he'd shoot the puck, and I mean, it wasn't the hardest shot. I think it certainly was very accurate, but I mean, 10 other people would shoot exactly the same puck at exactly the same time, and they wouldn't score. But
mhm.
Wayne would, you know, going between the goalie's feet. Well, it's I don't know, it's a God sent gift. I guess that's the best way I can answer that. And it's probably not the truth. They are exceptionally skilled players, and there's something that they read into opportunities that allows them to be more successful than other people. So,
Yeah,
it's
could
it's
be as
all
simple as they're
had an answer.
a microsecond faster than everybody else doing it, right? Like
Well,
you were
yeah,
saying, y
either in the release, because like I said, I mean, Wayne Gretzky had a great shot, but it wasn't the hardest, and it
no,
wasn't the fastest release. It was just the right release, the right speed at the right time, and a lot of people can't read that in themselves. But there's, yeah,
yep,
and there's other great goal scorers too. Luke Robitaille, who was a terrible, terrible skater, but he got to where he needed to get to, and if he had a chance to score a goal, the chances were very high percentage that he would. So
right?
those are other people that I can think of. So I
Yeah,
can go
so I mean,
down.
I like what you were saying about Luke there, because I mean, you said terrible, terrible skater. Obviously, he was good enough to get there, but
Mhm.
he had a clear weakness,
Yeah.
right? Like it was not the strongest skater on the ice at any given point. Um, Possibly a lot of the times the weakest skater on the ice at any given point. And yet, Hall of Fame
Still the
career.
best hockey player on the ice.
Yeah, exactly. He's
So, I
where
mean,
he
so
is.
Luke, if you're listening, which I doubt very much because I didn't have the opportunity to work with Luke, but uh, there's just people that their whole game is um, just better than anybody else's.
Mhm,
And again, it goes back to kind of that goal scoring opportunities. But because I've even had some really good goal scoring and point getting, you know, junior A hockey players at the major junior level, like Jimmy Magoo, for instance. I mean, God, he came into the league, and I think he left the league after 3 years with about 360 points, goals, and assists, and he was never given that same sort of opportunity, I don't think, at the NHL, or maybe he needed to be more, but he was another one of these people who worked hard. He had a work ethic and shot pucks and they went in the net, and other people shoot
mhm.
pucks and they don't. But there's something special
Yeah,
about them. So
but I mean, I
good
think
for
that's
them.
a good lesson to, some of the frustrated kids out there that are trying to get from one level to the next, trying
Mm,
to up their game is you might have something like Luke, not the best skater on the ice, but
mhm.
you might have that same vision that he did, or Gretzky or Ovechkin, where if you put it on my stick, I'm gonna find the mesh.
Yeah,
I will, you know, get it in that sideways lame duck wobble through the pads. I will get it over his shoulder just a fraction of a second before the glove comes up or the blocker
mhm.
comes up. I
Yeah,
will shoot it just so that when the defenseman finishes his momentum and pushes somebody out of the way, it's all of a sudden the puck's right there and he has no chance to react to it and get it, and it's gone.
yeah,
So you might not be the best skater. If you can do the bare minimum, you
yeah.
might scrape by with just the bare minimum what they want, but have other aspects there. I think the obvious one that is I mean, can't be worked on is size. I mean, sure, you can put on weight,
Oh,
but
I
you're
want to
not going
talk about that today.
I that's why I segue,
Oh,
because we had
yeah.
this chat in person a couple weeks ago. But
Mhm.
you can bulk up all you want. You can lift all the weights you want. You can put on all the muscle you want. If you are genetically destined to be 5'8", you are not going to be able to work out and stretch yourself until you become a Zdeno Chara. It
Yeah.
ain't going to happen.
Yep.
You can become a skating brick outhouse. Great. But maybe the size isn't it. Maybe you need to be the most agile player out there. Maybe you need to be able to see exactly whose stick is free. They might be covered. It's like, you know what? I can get this tape to tape through those three defensemen and get the assists. So
Yep.
you don't need to be the all-round, create a player, max stats, nines on everything to get there.
You need to work on making, for me, a hockey player has obvious strengths and advantages. Any athlete. No, I shouldn't talk hockey players. I mean, I've
Mhm,
done quite a bit of football talking in the United States,
mhm.
which is weird. I was intended to be doing hockey down there, and a couple of hockey people listened to me, and they thought, "Oh God, we got a high school football team. Would you come and talk to them?" And I spent more time
That's
talking to
great.
high school football teams than I did hockey teams. So
And that's
that
that's
was
the whole point of this, though, too, as we covered, that is your coaching style is not specific to a sport. And I think that's what all the great coaches have to their advantage, is they can transfer it over. They can, for the lack of a better term, and I know it's recent, they could Ted Lasso the shit out of this and go from, American football to English football, proper football,
Mhm,
because I know that I've had a couple people on the other show chastise me for that.
mhm,
You can switch your sports, because what you have to learn that's new is the drills or the plays.
mhm.
The
Yep.
mentality of it is where
The
it really
attitude
lies.
towards what you're doing is what makes the difference. How much effort are you willing to put into it, even if you don't know the skill yet? And then, hey, I like this. Maybe I should put some time into developing the
Mhm,
skill, not to the skill of the top players, but to a better level so that I can compete better, that I can be more of an advantage to my team. And it's all about mental work ethic for me. I've had lots of kids that have come in with great, great, great skills. And by the end of the year, the kid that didn't have the great, great, great skills, but the great attitude and trying to get those skills, usually made the biggest difference to the
mhm,
team. It's not that they became the top goal scorers, but their forechecking was better. Their back checking was better. Their defensive game was better. They were stronger because of the effort that they put into it. And so, what looked like it might be a disadvantage to have a certain player in a playing situation, he's improved uh, through his mental skills, his just outright effort,
mhm,
and proven to be considerably larger advantage for your team than what they were at the beginning of the year. Like I measure teams by first day and last day as to
mhm,
what my year has been. Not did we win it all or did we not win anything. Uh, for me, for the last 25, 30 years, it's more about how far did the team come? How far did each player come? How is the team that was the top goal scorer at the beginning of the year, has he developed other skills? I mean, it's like life, really. I
mhm,
mean, I think that's what athletics does for or should do for a lot of people. If it's not, then something's wrong. Is that it should improve your overall attitude towards what you're trying to accomplish in your own life. It might not be stick handling; it might be math. You know,
mhm,
it might be stick handling at the. It might be an improvement in attitude towards other people. Not. I mean, so many people that eye another person and just automatically because of what are the ethnic differences could or couldn't be, or attitude differences could or couldn't be. They're not willing to adjust or at least accept, the opportunity to learn. And it's the same thing with the sport. Oh, I'm not a good stick handler, so I'm just going to shoot all the time. You
Hmm.
know, I'm not a good skater, so I'm just going to run people into the boards until I've eliminated the other team. It's
Well, I
you
mean, and
can't
that's
have one thing. You've got to have a bunch of things to make you a better person. It's,
yeah. And what
uh,
I was saying earlier about just because you're weak in one area, you can be
mhm,
better in another area and ride on that. That's not to say
mhm,
don't work on it.
yeah,
It's not to say it's like, oh, I can't stick handle, so I'm just going to work on being able to skate. No, no, work on the stick handling too,
yeah,
but don't
that's it.
don't put it in your head in such a
Mm,
position that it's going to cause an automatic negative the
mhm,
second you try to do it and you are not to a level where you feel you need to be,
yeah.
because that's something that gets everybody in every walk of life. Ask
Yeah.
anybody that's tried to lose weight. They put in all the effort in the world and they think, "Ooh, I'm gonna hop on the scale. It's been a week since I weighed myself. I gotta be down at least 4 pounds. It's gonna be awesome." And the scale reads maybe a pound heavier, right? Or, you're down like half a pound. It's like,
Yeah.
and that derails them so often. And I've
What
seen
they
it in my
don't look at,
personal
they
life.
might be healthier because of what they've done, you know?
Exactly. And they're
That's
forming
the excuse I keep making for
yeah.
myself
Yeah,
anyway.
and they're forming a habit of doing it because I mean, it's keep working on it. If you're not the strongest skater or the stick handler,
Yep.
or you feel you need more size, keep working on it. Keep working on stick handling.
Yeah.
Do the extra cardio work off the ice. Do the extra skating on the ice. Yeah, eat your eat whatever you need to be. Take your legal protein helpers. Not saying go
Mhm.
talk to the shady doctor down the
Yeah.
street and
The
get something to
healthy.
help you out, but
Yeah.
keep working on it. Just realize that maybe you got a chink in your armor, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. I mean, like Gretzky's big chink was he wasn't the biggest dude on the ice.
Hmm.
That's fine. He knew it. It wasn't his job to be that way.
It didn't
He
keep
had
him
people on
back
the
from
ice that
being
were
who
there
he
to
was.
help him with that. Right? I mean, it's
Oh,
just the way it
yeah,
was.
that was probably I don't know whether he ever asked for it, but the team certainly recognized it and gave it to him,
Oh,
so
absolutely. I mean,
I'm
it's
not sure Wayne went and said, "Hey, gee, I'm really a lot smaller, and this is a big league, and I don't want to get hurt. So I want you to hire a couple of really big guys on the team that can beat everybody up, and then tell them to tell all the other
yeah,
team
just
people to stay away from me, or I'll beat me up." I don't think Wayne asked for that. Wayne just
no, and
went out
that's
and
not what I'm
played.
saying at all. Please don't please nobody out there say quote me on as that being the case. That's not what I'm saying. It was
Yeah.
recognized. Wayne
Yes.
didn't put himself often in a position where he needed to be the biggest, baddest dude in the
Yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
That's not to say because it happened a couple of times. He
Mhm.
would get in there and get gritty with you if he felt like it needed to happen. But at the same time, that was that was the weak portion of his game at the time.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
was recognized, and the game was much different. It didn't come in with Gretzky to have a bruiser on the lineup to make sure that the Golden Goose was able to get where he needed to be. That was a long-standing thing,
Mhm. Well,
but it is what it is.
Gretzky's success, I mean, he was successful everywhere that he went, but
Mhm,
that Edmonton team, I'd had a couple of players that played on that team that I knew, from doing hockey camps and working with junior A teams, and, I mean, they had some huge parts in that team. I never got to work with Mark Messier, but I knew his dad really well,
mhm.
and his dad was always trying to steal my hockey players because he knew I knew a hockey player, and he was coaching a junior A team. And Grant Fuhrer. I mean, some people say that Edmonton's cup successes were because of Grant Fuhrer. not
Well,
because
I
he
mean,
scored a bunch
that's
of goals. And then, and then, oh gosh, let me think. Glennie Anderson. I mean, I knew Glenn from
Mhm,
working BC Best Ever programs where he'd been through the program, but he wasn't playing in the NHL. He was playing junior hockey and college hockey, and I got to meet him. And there's another, a great story in terms of a hockey player with his own mind as to what he was going to do and who he was going to be, and it's all wonderful, wonderful stuff. So, but I
now
mean, Edmonton's success was pretty team deep.
mhm,
The fact that they had players like that. Uh, I think if they'd have been missing, one or two, or two or three of those, any of those players, it wouldn't have been as big a success story.
mhm,
And I'm sure guys like Gretzky and Messier and Anderson and Fuhrer and would all probably attest to that. Edmonton has one of the greatest teams of all time in those days, but it was part of how that
mhm.
whole group of people, plus all of the other people who were supporting roles, and I mean, there were some pretty big supporting
Yeah.
roles in there
Well, I
too.
mean, as
Takes
far as supporting role goes, a name you hadn't mentioned who seemed to play an interesting role to me was Yari Curry.
Oh, big time.
Again, not the biggest guy on
Sorry,
the
Yuri, I
ice,
forgot.
but
No,
his
I didn't
his
forget.
mouth was had to be just infuriating because you would see it. He got on the ice and it's like Deadpool. He's just out there and he's yapping. You see it, in Shoresy. It's just he's gonna get out there, he's gonna get in your head mentally, and
Mhm.
you see it. And then again, you needed a larger individual, if maybe a pushed in knuckle or two on the line. It's like, no, we need him for different reasons. And it's not to say that he didn't have on ice skills with the goals and the points and being where he needed to be.
Oh, he
He was
did.
quick, but it was just all the time with the mouth
Well,
and
you know
getting
what?
in guys' heads.
That's very distracting to the other team. Brad
Mhm.
Marchand has gotta be one of the best I think, he made the difference in that Vancouver-Boston, uh,
Yes.
Stanley Cup series
Yeah.
because he just got in everybody's face, and I think guys were, I don't know whether they were worried about him, but he distracted them,
Yeah.
and they made mistakes trying to catch up to him. I wouldn't say
Well,
catch up to him, but,
catch up to him, or, maybe
he
give him
was
a
smart. That can
in
be
wrestling, it's
smart
called a
smart play.
receipt where you get a little back from what's
Yep.
going on. But I mean, the team mouthpiece it's not something you can even really train.
Look
There's
at
just
Burroughs
something
in
natural about a
Vancouver.
guy that is
Yeah,
able to go out there, quick-witted, bust your balls, get on your nerves, and
yeah.
take you mentally out of the game. And if you're
Mhm.
mentally out of the game, if you're like, "I can't believe this fucking said this to me. I'm gonna get this guy. You're not in position for where you
Yeah,
need to be. You're
yeah,
not there. You're focused on, "Oh, he's got the puck. I'm putting him in the second row now."
yeah, and
And it's
you
a
don't get him
I
to the
don't
second row, and he gets you where it hurts you the most, so,
Yeah, exactly,
yeah, that's
right?
I mean,
You'll
Alex
draw a penalty
Burroughs
you'll
was
draw a penalty.
another great guy in those days, with the Vancouver Canucks. Boy, he could I swear he could aggravate a pineapple. So
Mhm.
it it's it was all part of the game, and it's always been part of almost every sport that you got people nitter natter. And I know there's a lot of talk about they'd like to take that out of the game, which is yeah, I mean it's part of the game. So I
Yeah,
mean, if
I mean,
you start giving out penalties for anybody who says, "Hey, your mother wear army boots," then there's a yeah, I mean, there's a little bit lack of mental toughness on the people listening to
Mhm.
that unfocuses them. So it's all part of being an athlete is being able to either take that or dish it out. So
I mean,
taking it,
Michael Jordan was really good at it too, and
oh
he
yeah,
just happened to be the greatest basketball player of all time. All
mhm,
due respect to oh god, LeBron James. Ron
mhm,
James is a completely different human being.
mhm,
But
yeah,
I mean, that's one of those things I don't think you could train. It's just a part of your personality. You're just one of those guys that's a natural ball buster, and
Yeah,
you.
they were doing it in the schoolyard in public school too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I think everybody's gone to school. I mean, Lord knows I can think of a few gym classes with that dude in there, and it's like, you know what? We're gonna get into a fight in gym class because this guy's getting on my nerves, and especially when you're younger and the testosterone and the hormones are flying off the shelves. Uh, it can be that yappy kid can get to you, and then they become
Yep.
yappy adults, and if they have the skills to get themselves into a professional sports league, they're a different kind of threat.
Yep.
It's I mean, ideally take your best player out of it, but if you can't mentally get under his skin, y getting some under somebody else's skin so they are 6 inches out of position at the right time
Mhm.
can lead to some really, really good things for your team.
Yeah, yeah, I'd like to watch basketball because a little bit. I played a little basketball in high school, but I never got to coach a basketball team. I thought that would have been really
Untrue.
cool because those.
That's
Uh,
not true. That's
did I?
not true. I played basketball in elementary school. You helped coach the 5th, 6th
Oh, that's
grade
right too.
basketball team.
I guess I have.
So, I mean, you
But
coached
I
it.
mean,
You didn't get to coach it
basketball.
on a so, yeah, it
You,
was it was up in Kamloops at Summit Elementary. I
mhm.
was trying it. I wasn't very good at it, but, you came and you helped coach, so you did
Well,
you did dabble.
see, I forgot, but
Yeah.
I like to watch basketball because that's a really on the floor mental game.
Mhm.
Because stepping out in the defense and the strong defense on players and the aggressive play in the game, and it seems to me, I mean, I watched the Raptors win the NBA. Which I didn't watch a whole lot of basketball, but I watched that from the time they went into the playoffs and the end. And, I mean, they just mentally intimidated a whole lot of teams. I don't know whether it was by a
Mhm.
lot of talk, but you'd see a lot of players. I don't know whether they're just, Kawhi and some of the other, but you know what? It was like they were putting it in your face and there wasn't anything that you can do about it. And it
Mhm.
worked out. It worked out because
I mean,
they beat a
from
couple of teams along the way that people didn't think they would beat. So,
yeah, from my limited experience with it, basketball seems to be one of those ones where trash talking starts at a very early age, and it
every time you stick
really.
a hand in there to try to get the ball, somebody's
Yeah,
yapping at somebody. Yeah.
yeah, and it's very widespread. Um, I'm no expert on it, but I've seen I've seen enough to get the feeling that the trash talk in basketball is sort of a skill you have to
Yeah.
sort of develop or tap into, because some people just don't have it. I mean, if that was the case, we'd all be multimillionaire stand-up comedians. And you develop it, you tap into it, and if you're lucky enough that it pairs with the work ethic to get the rest of the skills, you might be a Michael Jordan. Like,
Yep.
it's almost unfair that Michael Jordan had all this and, oh, by the way, he's gonna run his mouth and get in your head and make you make mistakes.
Yep.
And
Intimidate him with play or intimidate him mentally. But you know what? I mean, the consideration is Michael Jordan didn't make his basketball team the first year in
no,
high school.
he
So,
did not.
and then he turns out to be the greatest, I'll say, because that's kind of what I believe,
Yeah,
the greatest basketball player
right.
that I've ever known or seen play. And I just only
I
been on TV. I couldn't afford the tickets.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with that, but there's a large contingent that, would say that LeBron James is out, and
he's
you know what?
he's
I
great. But
it's not a shame. There's no shame in, being even at a level. It's like, well, I mean, sure, there's that level. It's like Gretzky and Ovechkin are on the same level as LeBron and Jordan. It's like they're right there.
They're
You can argue
they're
all you
super
want.
athletes. They're
Yeah.
superstars. They're, I mean, and, I mean, anybody who makes the NHL is a superstar. Anybody who makes, the NBA is a superstar. You
Mhm.
know, some of them are just, it's like you being the best player on your bantam hockey team, and by the time you get to junior A, you might be just lucky to make the team.
Yeah.
Uh, the quality of the athlete becomes better. The effort that some athletes put into it becomes noticeably different. The great ones are, the really good ones that move on and on and on. I don't know how many players that I have had and have seen that were nowhere close to the best player on the team that they played on. Uh, we've had a couple of them on here. Yet, they go on to having phenomenal careers and great financial success, and hopefully, they've maintained being excellent human beings, because that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
What kind of a person are you? And that, because that person will be more than willing to share what he has with you to make you better. You've
Mhm.
got to listen to them, or you've got to watch them. You know. But yeah, no, I mean, I've had some pretty big hockey names that were kids who just barely made teams in their first year, and were a little bit better contributors in their second year, and then as they moved up a division, again they started at the bottom, but they work hard to be at the top by the time that level is done, and they do, because they have the work ethic and they have the attitude, and work ethic and attitude will give you better skill level because of the effort that you put into it
Mhm.
every day. As I say to an athlete, you can't go to practice and say, "Oh God, I got to go to practice." The athlete who's doing that is due to stumble. They're not
Mhm.
going to make it. It's a hard pull. But every day that you have an opportunity to do something different and do something better, whether it's practice or whether it's a game, if you make your best effort at it, you take that one step up that you need. And if
Mhm.
you do it daily, you take a lot of steps in a year.
Yeah, that is absolutely key. I mean, as you're saying that about going to practice, a story popped in my head about Dennis Rodman, notoriously out there. Um, and then on, I believe it was the run against the Jazz. I think it was 97.
Mhm.
He famously ditched practice in Chicago during the playoffs.
It went to
And
Vegas.
no,
Yay.
he did not.
Oh,
He went to WCW Nitro and got in a wrestling match.
oh, that's right too. You're the wrestling guy.
So
You know that.
it's not even like, saying I'm calling in sick to work and then staying home and playing video games, or, oh, I'm not feeling so well, but you have pissed off to Vegas. He went on a different national
Was that
television
wrestling in
show.
Vegas?
What's that?
Was the wrestling in
I
Vegas?
don't remember the exact location,
I
but
just remembered
WCW
a
did like
connection
Vegas.
to
Um,
being in Vegas. That's
he does like the Vegas,
mm,
but and so it notoriously over time has ballooned into, oh well, he never went to practice.
no,
Bullshit.
no,
I
he worked
mean,
harder at
yeah,
practice than
there
anybody.
was there were times where, yeah, he said, "Fuck it, I'm not going. I'm gonna go hang out with Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage and Eric Bischoff." And those aren't me pulling names; those are actually the guys he's been hanging out with, that he was on TV with that night. And I'm gonna go do this.
Mhm.
He was at a lot more practices than people want to believe. It's like, oh, he never practiced. Bullshit.
No,
You
he
do
was
not
he
get to that
was
level
he
and not
was
practice.
the best defensive basketball player of his time. I mean, defense is work,
Yes.
hard work. Same thing with hockey. I mean, the goal scorers are the guys that reap the rewards, but the defensive guys that give up nothing on the rest of your team are the ones that
Mhm.
win championships.
Well, I mean,
You know,
it's, to send it back to hockey, that's where the plus minus comes from, right?
Mhm.
is your plus minus rating is largely dependent on the goaltender and the defense that are back there blocking the shots,
Mhm.
taking the puck away from people, and yeah, absolutely putting somebody on their ass because they dropped their head down 2 steps too early. It's you can't be all offense and no defense and expect to win games, because then it just takes a little bit of defense on the other side, and it's like, well, you shot the puck 90 times and 80 of them went in. Great. But what happens when you shoot it 90 times and they have defense that 2
Yeah.
went in, 4 went in on the other side? What are you gonna do?
Yep. Well,
Um,
any athletic endeavor, when it involves winning or losing, requires a tremendous amount of discipline and hard work, and it isn't all in the game. Of course, you got to bring it to the game, but if you don't
mhm,
practice it, you don't have it.
yeah,
And that's tried to emphasize with my kids is you can come here and say, oh, I hate practice. I'm just, you know, I can hardly wait to get to the game because, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. But if you haven't done it in
mhm,
practice, the more you do it, the better you get at it. Practice is an opportunity to do it before you need it.
mhm.
And so, yeah, practice is
I mean,
practice is a big time in terms of success.
you're gonna need to practice, run your drills, get in there in your scrimmage, and don't beat your teammates up. But at the same time, you 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 need to be able to learn the skills to get around other human beings. You
Yeah.
can stick that plastic goalie from Canadian Tire in the net all you want, and you can shoot, and you can be like, goes through the 5 hole every time, always over the left shoulder, under the right arm. That's great. Yeah, that doesn't move.
Yeah, it's a little
I mean,
harder in the game.
especially if, you're lucky enough to have a really good goaltender that, you're not trying to kill him, but if you're in practice and you're practicing against, a Patrick Waugh or a Dominic Hasek, your abilities of being able to do that are gonna go up.
Mhm. Yeah.
Now and that can go with any professional goalie. Obviously, like you were saying, I don't know, it's kinda like a big fish in a small pond thing, where you're the biggest fish in this pond, now you've gone up, you're not the biggest fish no more, and the pond's bigger.
Mhm.
But if you're at a level where, you have an NHL team, NBA, MLB, anything, any major professional, if you're at that level, you're still in that pond.
Yeah.
You might have a cup of coffee or you might have a 20-year career,
Mhm.
but these other guys in this pond are not there because their daddy owns the team.
Oh, oops. Let's not talk about that. Minor hockey is so hard, because
Yes.
you got kids that are very, very committed and love the game and they love to play the game and then their parents wanna make sure that their kids have, lots of opportunity and you know that the organizations need people to do work for them. You get involved and you get involved and then you start to make requests based on,
Mhm.
well, I put so much effort into it. My kids should be able to get more power play time. I've had stuff like that brought to me
Oh, I
all the
bet you
time.
have.
I mean, and you know what? I understand it. Most
Mhm.
coaches get pissed off at it. I understand it. My thing is, I understand how much, they have invested in their kids, in their kids' happiness. And if this makes their kid happy, I mean, most people try and do the things that make their kids happy. And my kid feels that he isn't getting enough ice time because this, that, and the other thing is usually probably true. He isn't
Mhm.
getting enough ice time compared to the superstar on the team. And
Mhm.
that's not fair. And well, the superstar, there's natural ability, but usually the kids that stay as a superstars put the work ethic into it too. I very seldom ever find a superstar who's never worked a day and doesn't care at all, you know. And I mean, for the last 30 years of coaching, doing minor hockey coaching and special tournament coaching, BC Best Ever and all the rest of those. I mean, you're seeing different kids, and I understand when a parent comes to me unhappy that his kid isn't getting this or isn't getting that. And then I seriously have to take a look at it. My as a coach, your whole thing is about the wellness of the team, and
Mhm,
sometimes the individual kids, you know, they can fall into cracks.
mhm,
But if any ever brought me that kind of problem, I'd take a really good look at it as, are they right, first of all? Yeah,
mhm,
the first line, I realize my kid's on the 3rd line, but he shouldn't be. He should be on the 2nd line anyway. But the kids on the 1st line are getting minute and a half shifts. And then it comes to my kid who's now playing on the 3rd line because you put him down to the 3rd line. I hate this 1st, 2nd, and 3rd line stuff, but he's playing on the 3rd line now. Your assistant coach or you put him on the ice. He's there for, 25 seconds and you're pulling him off the ice. That's coach manipulation. And
mhm,
coaches will do that to win games. They want their best players on the ice as much and having as much opportunity for the sake of the win. I gave up on the sake of the win. Uh, an incident where I made an all-out effort to win in an international hockey game years ago ended my days of doing anything that I could possibly do to manipulate the game. Um, some of those things work out very poorly for you. In this case, successful on the ice, but you know terrible incidences, that come or consequences that come off of the ice. So, yeah. So for the last 30 years, it's been put the kids out on the ice, trying to give them as close to equal time. And when the top player in their team, because I've had this happen, comes to me to complain to me about he should be getting more ice time, it's I give you your ice time for you to be as successful as you can, and if I extend your ice time, you will perform poorer by the
mhm,
end of the game. That was always my explanation,
mhm.
and I have that sounds strange. Most coaches wouldn't get this, but I've had
No,
a
I
number
that
of
doesn't
cases.
that makes sense to me because you're gonna get gassed. You're gonna run out of steam.
Mhm.
Take your take your few minutes, take your off shifts
Yeah.
and, get your breaths in,
Mhm.
grab a thing of water. But if you're out there so often, you're pushing, you're pushing, you're pushing, are you gonna push on your
Tends
first
for
shift the
failure by
same
the
as
end of
on
the
your
game.
last
Yeah.
shift?
Yeah.
Or are you gonna be, like I mentioned earlier, 6 inches out of position when you need to not be,
Yeah,
right?
it's yeah, and you know what? The other thing on that end, I mean, lots of guys have said, "Oh, well, we're coaching against Doug Harding, and it's a minor hockey game, and they make a big effort to beat me. They don't even make a big effort to beat their teams or have their team win." Uh, it's for me. By the end of the year, I always hated this first line, second line, third line stuff, but I never especially, I mean, been doing it for 57 years, but for the last 30 years of it, um, I I put my kids on the ice as close to equal opportunity as I could, because what I would understand is by the end of the season, if you weren't a particularly good team, and I've had those, by the end of the season, they were considerably better because then I could put anybody on the ice
Mhm,
to do the job that I had tried to explain to them was best for them. And as far as first sign, second and third lines, I didn't put my top 3 players, goal scorers on the first line, and then, my next with minor hockey, there's only 3 lines. Then my next best, and then whatever was left went on the 3rd line. And that's how kids understand hockey. Like, "Oh my god,
mhm.
I'm playing on the 3rd line." And worse, the their expectations of the drop of the puck at the beginning of the game. If I'm not on the ice for the drop of the puck, then I'm not on the first line anymore. I'm on a second or a third line. Like,
Mm.
how did that happen?
So
Like,
let me
I'm the
let
top
let me
goal
put this
scorer.
in let me put this in some superstar context here. In the NHL All-Star game, who's playing third line? Nobody's playing third line.
No.
If if for Vancouver fans, if Pavel Bure is playing on the third line, is it really the third line? Is it?
I tried to get the kids to think that your your line is the third line, or your line is the first line. I don't have a second and third line. I have 3 groups that go out and they're all first line. I
Mhm.
mean, trying to get that philosophy through for the last really worked at it for the
Mhm.
last 15 years as a, you know what, you're not a third line because, first has to be good, second has to be okay, third liner crap. And the last thing you want kid to think of because you started 2 other lines before them is that they're the third line. I mean, there's a downer right there. I
Yeah.
mean, so when I announced the lineups at the beginning of the game, I said, I never said this is a starting lineup. I always said, okay, this guy, this guy, and this guy, you're on the same line, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy, you're on the next, you're on this line, and your guys at this side, this side, and this side. And lots of guys would say, what's a starting lineup? And I said, oh, I haven't decided yet. Well, that sort of squelched the feeling that if
Yeah.
you started the game, you were first line. Like you didn't know you were going out. I said, oh, don't worry about it. You're all the first line. You're the first line.
Yeah.
Oh, coach, how come I'm not getting any more? I'm not getting every power play. I'm the top scorer on the team. Well, I need some more top scorers. So,
Yeah.
you know
It's like,
what?
well,
I,
you might be, but, the
and there you are.
the 3rd and 4th scorers on the roster are out on this line right now,
Mhm. Yep.
right? So instead of having you out there, I got 2.
Yeah.
Or you just came on, you haven't had a chance to breathe from the last shift.
Mhm.
Yes,
Well,
it's
that
the
doesn't
power
make
play,
any
but you were
difference to
right
me.
there. No, it doesn't. It
It
absolutely
doesn't
doesn't,
make
and
any
that's
difference to him at
that's
all.
that's
At the
ego,
NHL
right?
game, you see how they coach it, and there's different motivations at the NHL game. That's why
Mhm,
so many pro players can stumble and fall before they even get a career. I have
mhm,
some new kids coming in out of junior hockey that I've been involved with, for the 3 or 4 years, a couple of years ago, that are now, they were exceptional players as junior hockey players, and they're sitting up in the stands for the first year or two, and they don't understand that. Well, they do understand it. That's what the coaches said, so I'm going to accept it, but they don't like it. And I'm here in the show. I want to be playing in the show, and so
mhm.
it's hard. It's just as hard for NHL hockey players as it is for a minor hockey player to
Oh, you know
accept
what?
what
I would
first, second, or third line is.
I mean, there's so many degrees to that, but in an aspect, when you are in a league with a spotlight and paychecks with multiple commas in them, and everybody knows your business, and everybody has an opinion on it, especially if you're stuck in a large market like a New York, and LA, a Miami, a Toronto, or a passionate market like a Montreal or a Vancouver,
Mhm.
everybody has an opinion.
Yeah.
Everybody
Calgary and
has an opinion.
Edmonton. Don't forget those two.
Oh, no. I mean, I don't wanna sit here and list every league team in the
Yeah.
league, but,
Yeah, I had to
I mean,
throw that in there because I know how passionate Calgary fans are.
oh god, yeah. You know what? And we both know a cameraman for a large radio or a TV station out there that is been front and center for many of those games behind the
Yeah.
camera,
Yep.
watching that nonsense, and
Ye
it's true. And then
Yeah.
you get these full grown men, and we did sort of touch on this back when we had Jeff with us when we were talking about the mental health of being in that level. I mean,
Mhm.
and it's hard to escape with social media these days. It used to be, okay, well, I'm just not going to turn on the radio or the TV or read the newspaper. Now it's, you can't escape it. Everybody's got their opinion. It's in your face. You have your
Mhm.
social media because that's probably the way you were raised. Because most of these guys in the bigs right now are, mid 20s to early 30s, and it's just how they've grown up. Younger than Google, so
Yeah.
it's all right there. They see it, and some of them haven't had enough time to adapt to strengthen themselves mentally to it.
Yeah.
And they're getting hammered. You're on the third line. You only have this. Why did you do this? Well, great. I'm on the third line, but look what's in front of me. Right? Like
Most
you
players don't do that though, Matt.
no,
They
and
don't
it's
wanna look what's
they don't.
they wanna deal in the now and me, so
Yeah,
but, yeah,
and
yeah.
when you bring that back to the early teens or the tween years where you're really starting to get into this around 11, 12, 13, you got enough stuff going on, and we've touched on this before too, where you're you're insecure about everything. You have school pressures, you might have parental pressures, you have friend pressures, and you do not have the brain chemistry because it's just starting to change that you can deal with it. You haven't even had a chance to figure out mental health yet.
Mhm.
And yet you're being told that you're not on the starting line. Well, I'm not in the starting line. And I ended up being on the third line out, but I've had 20 goals in 25 games or
Mhm.
10 games or whatever it is, and then that gets into your head, and it's gotta be brutal. Like, it was hard
That's
enough growing up going through that not playing sports.
mm,
Like, wow, I can't even imagine, especially, if you're striving and pushing to get to a level where you can pay off mom's mortgage or
mhm, mhm.
whatever it is. It's astounding to me, and I don't know, like I said, it all comes down to sometimes you have to realize that in certain games, there's no starting lineup.
No,
There's no top line, there's just a line. It's
yeah,
a squad to go out there.
yeah,
It's, I play a game on my phone with superheroes, and it's you make up squads, and I may not send out the X-Men squad to fight the Masters of Evil squad because it don't work. I need my Avengers squad. It doesn't mean there's less or more. It's just I need this group for this reason at this time.
yeah, yeah.
And
Well,
I
and, I mean, at the NHL level, I'm pretty sure they still do. I haven't been there submitting beginning game rosters, but you have to, yeah, and like in baseball and in soccer, I believe too, the coaches have to submit their starting lineups
mhm,
and submit it to generally the visitor has to submit it to the home team, and
mhm.
then the home team will turn around and see who you're starting, and then make their
Adjust.
decision as to, "Oh, this is a weak line, we're gonna start our best
Yeah.
line," or, "This is their best line, I'm gonna start our best checking line." I mean, kids don't consider that either, they just look first, second, and third, first, second, and third.
Yeah.
I'm on the third, oh god, I was on the first last week because I started the game. Like,
Yeah, and then you have,
it's
and
too
y
hard.
it gets released to the media as well these days,
Mhm.
right? And it
Yeah.
has for quite a while. I mean, and it's not a new thing, but it gets released to the media and everybody knows. And then every fan that thinks they have a clue, but are actually too many beers deep before the pucks even drop, um, is got an opinion on it. And it used to be they're just gonna boo you from the bench, but then all of a sudden they're tweeting it or it's going on their Facebook status and they know way better than the coach. But you know what? No. Sorry, son,
They
sit
have a
down. I'm
dollars
doing
and
my job.
cents value, so therefore they have an opinion, but
Mhm.
that opinion should, if you're tweeting that, then you should be thankful you got to tweet it and then shut up.
Yeah, right? I
Sorry
mean,
about that.
like, don't no, I mean, you're absolutely right. You see it all the time. I mean, it's football season. So Sunday, my Facebook is full of expert football opinions. I have yet to see an opinion from anybody that has played professional football. And you have a valued opinion as a fan. Lord knows things I'm a fan of, I have a valued opinion of. I don't necessarily understand why certain things go on or why, I'm just going to go into wrestling because we know where I'm dancing around it. Why we're going to put why is Daniel Bryan against Kazuchika Okada on this one and not Will Ospreay? Or because there's other things going on.
Mhm.
There are other plans. There are reasons you don't need to know. The coach
Yeah.
does not need to go on a live stream before the game and explain his entire game plan.
Yeah.
You need to trust in the coaching staff. Granted, they're not infallible, but we won't know that until they get fired. So, I mean,
Yeah, and
that's
a
just
lot of
the way
times
it
they're
is.
fired for not good reasons, so, I
Oh, and
mean,
that's true too. I mean, it's
for professional coaches, winning and losing is the beginning and end of your job, so and it
yep.
doesn't matter how much effort you put into it or how much things are changing around and how positive, things are becoming. You haven't done particularly well, and then the team is getting better, but you lose a big game and you're fired. You're
Mhm.
gone. And that's owner pressure from the fans.
Yes, and the
Basically, that's
fans
where
and
it's
the
at.
shareholders,
The
because I
fans
mean, there's
do have a say.
oh, they
They
absolutely do.
wanna
I mean,
win because it is all about winning. That's why
and
professional sports are different and shouldn't be looked at in terms of development sports, the development sports underneath the professional sports. Um,
well, no, that you're supposed to be
you hate to lose a pro job, but that's where that's
you're
at. You're being
you're
paid to win, you know that.
yep, you're well, I mean, that's exactly it. You see it all the time. This coach did fantastic, but you came in second in the league. It's a little embarrassing. And the fans vote. The fans have a very powerful vote. They either spend the money to put an ass
That's
every
it.
18 inches or they don't. Professional sports isn't just the glory on the field or on the ice. It is, do you have an ass every 18 inches so that we can afford to pay these
Mhm.
players?
Yep.
And the players, don't get me wrong. I'm not I'm not saying they're overpaid. If you're filling that building, absolutely. You should get a cut of that. You shouldn't be paid nickel and dime because the owners want to take it. You should be getting a cut for a sold out house. However, if the team is doing poorly and they're only filling half the seats, something's got to change.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of times that happens, and the coach is the scapegoat because he's got the cheapest buyout.
Oh, yeah, no question about that. There's not many coaches that are making the money that the middle of your roster are making.
Mhm.
I mean, the middle of an NHL roster's gotta be around the $2.5 million area, I'm guessing.
You know what?
I
I'm
don't
sure
really
in
know.
the next few weeks I can look that up and we can have a discussion
Yeah,
about that.
yeah.
We're
There
running a
are
little
very few
heavy today, but
coaches that
that's
are being
okay.
paid $2.5 million a year, let alone a
Mhm,
couple of coaches have hit the big times with $4 or $5 million contracts, but
mhm.
they didn't
Those are
seem to
big
last
names.
very long either because there's a lot
Yeah,
of pressure to
I mean,
compensate for the $5 million they paid you.
yeah, those are big names. Those are big, big, big name winning coaches that get to that level. I mean,
Mhm,
we're and I'm not saying I know this for sure, but we're looking at guys like Scotty Bowman
mhm,
and that have been out there, Ken Hitchcock that have been out there. We're A lot of these coaches are just they're talking to people. I don't know, it's the inverse of most people's jobs where
mhm.
the boss is making the least amount of money.
That happens in pro sports.
Oh, it
Yeah,
absolutely does.
yeah,
Um because you're going to pay through the nose. I mean,
yeah.
it's a
Well,
good thing salary caps came in.
you're the easiest person to blame, and if that
Mhm.
doesn't change, then the next easiest person is your general manager.
Yep.
So, team isn't winning, the coach is fired. Team general manager hires a new coach, the team still isn't winning, general manager is fired.
Yep.
So, I mean, and I'd hate to lose one of those jobs, actually. Be
Well, I
pretty
mean, it's they're good jobs to have if you can get them. It's just, yeah, you do end up being a scapegoat.
Yeah.
And, sometimes there's just sometimes it just seems to come down to one game and you go in and everybody plays, there's no flaw in the game. You can't go, the team was incoherent. They weren't playing as a group. Everybody was out for themselves, or the dreaded, oh, the refs were against us, or anything
That's
like
all the
that. It's just
coach's fault, though.
we put everything we had. We gave 100%. Everything we wanted to do, we did, and they did the exact same, and it was a fair win for them.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it could be into like fifth overtime. It's like, well, you know what? You lost. You're done. It's like, okay,
Yep.
I guess.
That's
And it
that's the
happens
only
every year.
coaching response you have is, "Oh, okay."
I mean, it starts happening about March with
Mhm.
NHL teams. You start seeing coaches going, ah, crap. I mean, it's once you start seeing playoff
Actually, it
spots
starts
clinched,
happening at Christmas time,
does
man.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it starts happening at Christmas time. You know, the base success NHL Stanley Cup winning success I have seen in the last 25 or 30 years, it was the St. Louis Blues because they were in last place at Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
Coach didn't get fired. They had expected to be near the top of the league, but they won this. The ownership hung in there with them. I don't know whether they couldn't afford to hire another coach or not, but the turnaround with that team, I imagine record-wise, there might have been similar. But for me, watching that St. Louis team go on to win the Stanley Cup was incredible
Wow.
in terms of
All right.
faith by the players and the coach faith by the or players faith in coaches faith in players, and general managers faith in that they can do the job, and the ownership just stayed out of it, which, wow, in last place at Christmas time should have cost one of those guys their job.
Mm-hmm. And
Congratulations, St. Louis.
and that's the
The team
2019
that's a
team, yeah.
while ago, huh?
2019.
Yeah, I think yeah,
Yeah.
about in then. You know what? It's they after Christmas time they went on just a tear. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, I don't know. They didn't lose many games from Christmas time on. Before Christmas, they were in last place in the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a lot like the old Charlie Sheen movie, Major League. So I'm not saying there
Yeah,
was a cutout of the manager or the owner in the locker room or whatnot, but I mean, it's
yeah,
one of those, and they do happen, like that. Those Disney moments
they
where it's
do.
like we shouldn't be winning, we got to turn this around, or we're all, I'm
Mhm.
fired. They're going to tear the stadium down. They're going to move the team. They're going to fold the club, and everybody pulls together, right? So it does happen.
Yeah,
It's not
it
just
does.
because Hollywood's writing it.
Yeah,
It's
it happens.
the Miracle on Ice is not a well, it's fictionalized, but it's not a fiction story, right?
US was not supposed to win the gold medal,
No.
but they did. You know, whether it's coaching or players, I mean, I think every hockey player has seen that movie a dozen times or more.
Mhm.
Same with Slapshot, you've seen that movie a dozen
And
times or
it's
more.
and Miracle on Ice is relatively recent because I remember
Mhm,
putting that together when I was working at the movie theater. So I
mhm.
mean that's 2004, I think. I'd have to
Yeah,
look it up, but
somewhere around there, yeah,
somewhere
or
around there.
2000, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a great success story, but, you know, did they have the players? They must have, because they won. Did they have the
Mhm.
coaching staff? Must have, because they won. Did anybody before that happened think that that would happen? I don't know too many people who did.
No, it
If
was
you did, by God, you know what? I wanna
eh,
get on your betting
yeah,
line.
say somebody placed a really good bet on that one that he wasn't supposed to win and cashed in, but I don't
Mhm.
know who he was. Um, it I don't know. It sounds a lot like the movie Moneyball, where it's like, no, I need this stat for this first baseman, and I need this stat for this second baseman, and I need this hitting percentage for this guy, and I need this, and it's like we're not hiring superstars, we're not breaking the
Mhm.
bank, but we're putting the puzzle pieces together so that
Were they the lowest salary in Major
I
League
believe so.
Baseball?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
haven't seen it in a
and there's
while,
been
but
a
yeah.
couple of Major League Baseball teams, and I mean, you've always got New York and Boston who are big, but there's been the Minnesotas who have been fairly successful with a
Mhm.
fairly low budget, and kudos to those people. You found the key to to the vault and you opened it up, and that's a successful.
Yep.
So
Well, I mean,
it's
it's
nice to
putting the
see
puzzle
those
together,
things
right?
to know that they can happen.
It's putting the puzzle together, and that's no different than what you were saying about the lines. It's like, well, I'm I just have I have three squads we're putting out there. You can get
Mm-hmm.
obsessed with the numbers all you want, but
Mm-hmm.
I have three squads I'm putting out there, and I'm putting this squad out there because this is what I need from them and they're good at it, and this is what I need from them and they're good at it, and this is what I need from them and they're good at it. And oh, by the way, I don't know who's starting yet because I haven't had a good look at the other team. So just
That's right.
give me a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah. And the other thing that I didn't mention too much, it's the guy who thinks he's playing on the first line, and you shuffle the lines around, and all of a sudden, I'm not on the first line anymore. That happens too. It's not
Mhm.
only the same fixed group of people, which, that was, there was a lot of that, done in hockey years ago, and there
Mhm.
still is a fair amount, but it's the switching around of lines. And I used to, in the last few years doing minor hockey before I started doing, uh, working with a BC elite program in Burnaby. It it's oh gosh, you know, why am I? Why are they changing me? What did I do wrong? Coach, our line got 3 goals in the last game, and you're changing us up. I said, yeah, but you had 4 goals scored against you.
Mhm.
You know, I just want to try something different because it's all about personalities. And little beknownst to it or not, you're playing with a teammate and you hope that he's your teammate and best buddy, but that seldom happens on a team where everybody is their best buddies. And
Well,
I don't
it's
want
a
to play with
workplace
this
too, right?
guy, and this guy didn't pass me the puck the last game, so I'm not passing him the puck this game. And it's working through all of those mental things to make the puzzle fit right and look right and do right. And I used to have a lot of fun, and I thought, you know, I had some pretty good success in being able to do that. I told the kids, it doesn't matter who you play with. I'm putting you together so that the opportunity for you three people to be the best that all three of you can be in a
Now,
group. So if we
now
change that,
question
goes.
for you, and
Mhm.
well, maybe a theory. So correct me if I'm wrong here. Please don't, just like you did earlier. Don't ever let me talk out my ass without going. Actually, it's this way. And because it's like I said, I mean, you see a lot of it in March, but yeah, I guess it does happen around Christmas. I mean,
Mhm.
it's almost the halfway point in the season. So if you're sucking hind teat, then maybe somebody with money. Anyways, so about switching up the lines.
Yeah.
I would imagine that practice is it's hard work. I'm not saying it's not hard work and you're not there for a job, but I would imagine it's a little more fun, a little more loose, and you could probably see chemistry between different players a little better. Maybe if you're
Mhm.
running a scrimmage and the lines are split up, it's like, oh, actually, you know, um,
These
Bobby
guys
plays
read off of them really well.
Bobby
Yeah.
plays really, really well with Kyle.
Mhm.
But I don't have them on the same line. So why don't I shuffle this up and we'll put these 2 together and let's see how this does. Is that sort of a thing? I mean, it would seem to me like
Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no question about it. I mean, I used to watch the dressing room, didn't I? I hated hanging around the dressing rooms because I like the kids to be
mhm,
kids without them feeling like they've got their parents staring at them every emotion or every action that they have in a dressing room. Yeah, you hope that you can see developing chemistry between players, but quite often, uh, you know, best friends, outside the arena have a tendency to work together better and show a little less jealousy because jealousy in the dressing room, again, it's one of
mhm.
these things you don't want to have and you try really hard to avoid, but you have to really know the characters of your players to be able to make those kinds of moves before you affect them mentally. and
Mhm.
oh, I don't want to play with this guy, you know.
Right.
Uh, if I can, if I could see a situation like this, oh God, I think I really like to try this. This kid has a great vision, and this kid can score goals. And if he can see him, he can find him, and he'll score goals. And
Mhm.
and yet, they just had a fight at school
Yeah, there you go.
over a girlfriend, and you're going like, oh my God,
Yeah.
this is probably the best that we can or can't do. So if almost every chance that I had, if I made a change in a lineup as to who players are playing with them, is I would sit them down before the game and say, hey, um, I wouldn't just post it on a board and
Right,
let
and
them
walk
sell
out.
it out like
Yeah.
sorry, coaches. I know 90% of you do that. Oh, here's your starting lineup. There's the
Yeah.
line. You know, line one, line two, line three, line four. And they've spent probably the whole week working that out in their head.
Mhm.
But if you don't explain some of the reasoning to the players that you're making a change with, then generally you get anxiety, and
Oh
anxiety
god, yeah.
never works particularly well with performance.
No, absolutely not. No, that it doesn't even matter what you're doing. It's across the board. It doesn't matter if you are an athlete or an accountant. If something is changed and you don't know why,
Mm,
you absolutely will go out of your skull trying to micromanage it. Part of the reason we've been a little delayed getting shows done here is because that was going on in another aspect, not specifically to me, but it did involve the way the setup here was gonna need to change, and there was a lot of that going on in an office environment, which did eventually lead to something else. A bunch of things changed for a bunch of people, but there was a good week and a half or 2 weeks or probably even longer, really, that it was a roller coaster ride of, "I don't know why these changes are happening."
mhm.
So that it if you can't
Those are hard
explain
things
to your
to live with.
players or your staff why it's happening, you are going to end up with people whose mental game is in the toilet.
Mhm. Well,
And
especially speaking about staff, Matt, that's one of the other things that I became fairly, like a lot of coaches. I don't imagine Scotty Bowman discussed with his staff very much the changes that he was or wasn't going to make. But I don't know that. Yeah, he
yeah,
could. But for me, before I announced or I wrote up anything as to what we were going to do, I would at least give the opportunity to the coaching staff to comment.
mhm,
And yeah, I have to say, more than a few times, they made a comment about this, that, and the other thing, and they may have included something that I wasn't considering, and or I may have included something that they hadn't been thinking about. And then I would tell them, okay, this is the way we're going to do it. Whether they agree or didn't agree,
mhm,
somebody had to say what the deadline was. This is the way that we're going to do it, and we have to present a unified front.
mhm.
And, we have to be able to present this to the players so that they understand too. So they
I
know
mean, that
why I was making my changes or why I wasn't making my changes before I announced them to the players because they had to stand behind me. If they didn't, I
oh,
got rid
yeah,
of
no, it's mutiny, and then you get a faction of the players are like, "Oh, I'm going with Coach Rob because he was
Yeah.
clearly not on board with co the way Coach Doug moved me to the 3rd line."
Yeah.
Um,
That's it.
and then you have players that are tuning out. And it's just the way it is. I mean, I you're talking about that, and it kinda reminds me of the old Star Trek: The Next Generation. There's a situation going on, Picard turns around and is like, "Options, Data, Worf, Riker. Okay, 3 opinions. We're gonna go with this one." Worf didn't stomp off the bridge because he wasn't able to fire the photon torpedoes. Data didn't retreat to the holodeck. It's just like, "No, okay. It is what it is." So
Yep.
we got asked for options. We gave options. Captain said we're
Yep.
going with that. All right, let's do it. And
Yep.
that's, I would imagine there's more than a few teams that have run into that problem and not handled it the same way.
No, I've listened to assistant coaches about changes they want to make and had gone ahead and not fully agreed, but made the changes anyway with the understanding that I could pull a plug in and go right back to the way it was
Mhm.
or a different way.
Well,
And being able to work with your assistant coaches and I wished I'd been more in tune with general managers. But general managers have a tendency to be general managers. They come down to the hockey games and criticize and severely for
well,
how
I
the
mean,
games went.
the
But
the
they,
general manager needs to kind of be concerned with the whole picture.
yeah,
So, while the coach is concerned with putting the best winningest team on the ice to draw eyes and draw fans, the GM's got to be concerned with the fact that the owners are going to turn around and go, "Hey, um, we didn't sell out last night. There was 6 empty seats." And it's like, "Well, we sold 17,994." It doesn't
yeah,
work that way. He's got different pressures with the whole
yeah.
overview. And
Somebody made a comment on a sponsorship,
right?
Matt. Like I had that kind of happen. I was doing a pregame radio something or other, and one of the sponsors was sponsoring it, and part of the deal was is that that I kind of slided into the conversation, about geez, the great game, but McDonald's has been really good about giving us some gift certificates
Mhm.
for fans, and I made the mistake of forgetting one. It wasn't McDonald's, by the way,
Oh,
but
you
I made the
forgot to plug a
mistake of not
sponsor.
mentioning them. And honest to God, the guy came in and he put $1,000 up for the sponsorship. He was mentioned in all of the stops
Yeah.
and in between the periods. And
Mhm.
I did mention him at the end of the game that because I realized I'd made the mistake, and I made sort of, oh, I want to apologize for not mentioning, Joe
Yeah.
Blow's pizza shop tonight, but make sure
Mhm.
you run down there and get your pizza after the game. Oh God, I'd never done commercials before, so it was pretty
Right?
tough. But
Well,
he actually demanded his $1,000 back for I want my $1,000 back. He forgot to
I mean,
mention me at the
that's
beginning of the game.
that
And you know what? At the time, I was a general manager owner, so you can imagine what city that was
oh,
in.
yep, I
I
know
gave
exactly what city that
I
was. Yes, I do.
I gave him his money back. I sincerely
Yeah.
apologized, and I told him we're going to do it for free for you next time. So, because he used to do, two or three or four games a year,
Mhm.
and yeah, I forgot to mention it at the
Yep.
beginning of the game in the little pregame. That comes down with doing coaching, general managing, and owning, which I do not
Multiple hats,
recommend
right?
it. That's
Yeah, so you
bankruptcy.
on the upside, the
My
owner's not
coach,
gonna
I couldn't
fire either
fire
one
my
of you.
coach.
You
Or
fired the
my
coach
coach
and the
quit, and
GM.
I couldn't get rid of the general manager. Yeah, it was it
Well,
was
what'd you do if you
it
fired
was
the
a fun
coach and the GM? I
experience.
had to rehire him because I didn't have time to interview anybody else.
Yeah, anyway, so it that
You know what?
was that was
I think we're
those
sitting
things
at an
happen.
hour and almost 40 minutes here, so I think
Oh
maybe we'll
god.
wrap this one up.
I
It
split
great
this
for you.
one in 2, Matt.
Great. No, I'm just gonna let it run. Great way to end this. So if you would like to sponsor us, because this isn't free, drop us a line at enforcingthefundamentals at gmail.com. No capitals, all one word. You can check it out on the YouTube page, where it will pop up on the screen at an hour and 38 minutes. And you know what? Drop us a line if you want to hear something or you have questions that you would like
Please.
asked. Please use this email address, enforcingthefundamentals at gmail.com, all lowercase, no spaces. We will take sponsorship money, and I promise that I won't let Doug read them, or I will, I will put it up on the screen so that he has no choice but to read them. We'll figure that out.
Okay,
And
that's okay.
enjoy your trip. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe if you're interested in having Doug come out, drop us a line. We'll see what we can do about that once he gets back from this globe trotting trip of his. Um, where there are no hockey rinks. This is going to be weird for him and
Oh,
my
I'm gonna go
entire
find
family is.
one, Matt. I'm gonna go find one. They can't,
I
I mean, it's just after winter in South Africa, so there's gotta
true.
be a piece of ice someplace. Anyway, Matt, I just want to say out to everybody, be great. And the reason is because you can. Okay, step at a time. Looking forward to doing this again shortly. Bye bye.